Hello, everyone. Welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of the Snap Journals podcast, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. Before we go anywhere with this episode, I want to apologize. I said there was going to be a video Saturday. There was not. Not going to get into too much detail. If you want, you can hop on the Marvel Snap Zone Discord and I'll explain. I ended up in the hospital for most of the day Friday, and I randomly hit like 3.5 hours of traffic Saturday, and it ruined my scheduling plans. So I'm really sorry. We will have a deck today. We will have an extra deck tonight to make up for yesterday, and then we will have our regular two a day for the rest of the week. What we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at yesterday's Snap Battle Arena data, try and glean what we can from the new meta from that. I've got a lot of, I think, important inferences from that. From there, we're going to look at the top two decks in the tournament, how we got there, what they tell us about the meta. That's today. Before we do that, though, I'd like you to hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell, like, comment, go the whole 9 yards. What we do here is we bring you the best, most detailed Marvel Snap content to help you hit infinite before anyone else has realized these decks even exist. This way you can get more cubes faster, you can play better decks before other people even know they exist. Last week we broke the meta with several really great decks. We're looking to do it again every single week. In addition, we're doing a giveaway. We're starting that giveaway next week as soon as I get back. Going away for a little bit this week. Again, videos will not be interrupted, but we're starting two giveaways. We are starting the single biggest Marvel Snap Season Pass giveaway in the game. We give away more season passes than everyone, but you need to sub for that. We're also giving away 3 Marvel Snap Zone premium subscriptions. The reason we're doing that is we want to help you get those Infinity tickets, get your goals in Marvel Snap. And what's happening on Marvel Snap Zone Premium right now is Den, a legend in the card gaming community, is offering weekly group coaching sessions for that. So I want to give away some passes so you can see the value you get from learning from a pro. All right, hit that sub button. Make sure you're in for all of these things. Let's talk Snap Battle Arena. That Battle Arena is the biggest regular tournament in Marvel Snap. It's regularly 30-ish players, a couple Saturdays a month, and these are money tournaments, so people compete really hard in these open decklist tournaments. Our top 8 were the following 8 decks. We're going to talk about them, then we're going to talk about the decklist stats, then we'll go back to card frequency. So the top 8 decks were 3 different Thanos control, a High Evo Lockjaw, a Double Moon Girl, a Sarah Miracle, a Patriot, and a Devil Dino. We're not going to talk about it in any great detail, but the High Evo Lockjaw is exactly, like as in card for card, one of my spicy hot dog lists. So told you High Evo Lockjaw wasn't going anywhere. Even the nerf to Spider Ham didn't change it. You can see Spider Ham right here in the deck. We're going to click over to deck list stats because this is what I think is interesting. 25% of the field was Thanos control. That's the W deck we highlighted last week. We'll talk more about it in a minute. That is the most common deck in this tournament. That's unbelievable. It had also, despite being so heavily played, a 56% win rate. Again, that is super freaking high. There's some other high win rate stuff, right? But it's 2 or 3 people playing it, or 5 people playing it, 26 people playing it with a 56% win rate. This deck did incredible. 3 top 8 and a whole bunch more that were in the 5 and 2 bracket, which just missed it. Thanos Control is, until further notice, the new meta deck, the thing you have to be prepared for, able to beat as you play Marvel Snap. We're also seeing a fair amount of Patriot. Patriot's always a tournament deck, not really a ladder deck as often, but Iron Patriot is still very good. And we're seeing a rise in Surfer and Darkhawk good stuff, both decks that are just really good, really solid as the meta gets settled. Other things we can learn. The most frequently played card by far in literally half of all decks was Shang-Chi. That makes sense. Shang-Chi ended up with a positive win rate, but not a terribly positive one given how many decks it was in. Still, that it's positive at all in half the decks is impressive. We also had a massive amount of Jeff. Jeff makes a lot of sense in this meta. It's A, just a great card, but B, a great card, especially in both Thanos control and against it because it's basically the only card that answers Professor X. We've got a massive amount of Cosmo. Um, let's actually talk about Iron Lad first. Iron Lad is in a ton of decks. Iron Lad ends up in 50 decks. Remember, that's like way more than there were of that Thanos deck. So Iron Lad is in your shop right now in your spotlight caches. If you can get this card, I think it's absolutely worth going out of your way to get. The card ends up being super freaking powerful. The other thing I really want to highlight is that Cosmo is back in the meta. Largely because it's in the Thanos list, right? But it's being seen more than just the Thanos list. It's being seen also in an awful lot of Darkhawk lists. And remember, that's one of the top 3 most popular decks right now. So it's worth being ready for the rise of Cosmo and preparing your decks accordingly. Maybe be a little more careful with your ongoings. Maybe Echo doesn't look quite as bad as she did. And there was a decent amount of Echo in this tournament as well. All right, those are my thoughts on the different decks for this tournament. The different stats for this tournament. Let's start moving on to the decks. Last week's tournament was won by W, who is our guest on this week's Snap Judgment Spot. W played this exact list. We've talked about it on this channel several times. Earlier in this video, that was linked at the top of the screen. It'll be in the description to the video. Don't stress it. If you want like a detailed breakdown of this deck, I did a deck of the day about it. We've talked about this an absolute ton here. This deck is sick to the point where 25% of the field showed up with it. That is huge. That is top of the line showing up for Snap. So let's take a look at what changed, because literally one card changed between that and the deck that won. That one card is Super Scroll. And I'm going to tell you why I think that's so important. Super Scroll is absolutely great with both Patriot and Iron Man all over the meta. It basically says I can win the mirror because when you Professor X, I'm also getting a Professor X. If you like in the mirror, if your opponent plays Psylocke or Time Stone, you know that on 4, you can choose a lane to Super Scroll in and lock down a lane of your own. From that point, it's like a Spider-Man off or a Blue Marvel off to see who can win. It's a really, really great play. It's a really great shout. The other big thing is one of the ways to beat this deck fairly consistently is to play a high evolution. No, excuse me, a living tribunal game plan. Professor X and Spider-Man lanes are usually won by very little power, and then there's only really Devil Dino to get tall in another lane, which means that if you are going tall with a Iron Man on top of Living Tribunal, you tend to win, right? Now, the important part to note there is that it's going to get both your Iron Man and Tribunal, this Super Scroll, but it will not be able to double that Iron Man using Onslaught, because Onslaught says other cards, and Super Scroll is the same card that has both Iron Man and Tribunal and Onslaught's text, so it cannot be doubled that way. So if you get Iron Man and Onslaught with Tribunal, you should still have a good matchup here. It's worth noting that most of those decks are Hella decks, and this deck does run a combo. So if you are going to play the Hella deck that we highlighted on Friday, and again, link will be in the description to that video as well. If you're going to play that Hella deck as a counter to this, and it is a counter to this even with Super Scroll, you're basically ignoring the Hella play line, and you're going all in on trying to make sure you get Iron Man, Onslaught, and Iron Man, Onslaught, and Tribunal. Iron Man and Onslaught in one lane, doesn't matter if Tribunal's. That's ultimately. If you can get all 3 of those things, you should still be able to beat the Professor X and Spider-Man lanes. And honestly, this deck doesn't have any other way. Otherwise, this deck is incredibly powerful. Professor X is a wildly powerful card. The other real way you can counter it is Phoenix decks should counter this reasonably well if they can avoid the Cosmo. If you can avoid Cosmo and get either a big multiple man or a big multiple man or a big torch, no Killmonger here, you can put that into a Spider-Man lane and then like Taskmaster or play another big card another lane. The danger, of course, is Shang-Chi, but you should be able to relatively, not entirely, but relatively easily avoid priority in these cases. If you can, you're good. If you can't, you're dead. Also, you're running armor, so if you can pull that off, that helps too. That's a reasonable matchup, not a good one. This deck is incredibly strong. W is a busted card player. I hung out on his stream earlier and he played this silly Leech Kazoo that was like just dominating games and the deck wasn't good. He's just really, really great at the game. This deck is great and really, really tough to beat. So if you're ready for it, you're gonna be seeing it. One deck, however, that could have beaten it was our number 3 deck. Sorry, number 2 deck for the evening. The number 2 deck was this Moon Girl double up deck. It's got 2 main play lines. All the early stuff is fairly obvious. It's an evolutionary deck. It uses Misty, Sunspot, and Cyclops to avoid taking energy. Quinjet helps you when you double cards with Moon Girl. But your basic gist of the deck is to play Magic. And then if you play Magic, you can on turn 7 drop both Hulk and She-Hulk as all your stuff gets bigger and their stuff gets smaller, i.e. Sunspot, Misty, and Cyclops. Or you can Moon Girl, get 2 cheap She-Hulks on the last turn, and play those with a bunch of other stuff to win. Either one of those is a crazy strong play. Armor protects those plays. Jeff gets you places you don't want to have trouble in. Armor and Cosmo make sure that you don't get just murdered. If you can pull these card combos off, you end up putting an absolutely absurd amount of power out on the deck. A wave on turn 5, on turn 6 could ruin your life, but wave hasn't been in the meta like at all with the demise of bounce right now, so you're relatively safe. Your Magic getting blown up could be difficult with either Storm or Reality Stone. That's ultimately a huge problem, but you can try and protect that limbo again with Cosmo. Cosmo is an extraordinarily important card in this meta. This deck is absolutely sweet. I really, really enjoy the way it looks. I like that we've moved away from Kitty for these double up decks. We've moved away from Hitmonkey, both of whom were nerfed. Hulk was nerfed, but nowhere nearly as strongly, right? So, like, this deck is basically taking advantage of the fact that She-Hulk and Hulk can be so big that your opponent can't always match them, particularly in decks like the aforementioned Thanos deck. Also, Magic is a really, really nice Spider-Man counter. If they Spider-Man on 5 and you've Magicked, well, that location is going to reopen on 6 for you to do all your shenanigans. If you didn't Magic, then they have different issues, right? Don't be afraid to play Magic on turn 5 if you think Spider-Man is likely. Excuse me. There are a lot of possibilities for how to play this deck, for how to win with this deck. This is not a presence in the meta at all going into this tournament. Thanos is the deck, and I would look for this to be played more and more so we can see how powerful it is and see what it does. I actually have a similar deck to this for one of later on's decks because it is so powerful. All right, that's the end of today's. That's the end of this morning's video. Remember, there will be another one this evening. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe. We appreciate the support as always. Peace.